Hi again, and welcome back to Learn to Code by writing Space Invaders. In our last lesson, we wrote the alien drawing function, so we're now able to draw the alien array on the screen. But as yet we haven't got it moving, so in this lesson we're going to look at how to make that whole array shift left and right, and also then when it gets to the edges to shift down. So let's get straight into the code by loading in our previous lesson's work and going from there. As usual then, we're going to load in our lesson 14 code, and then we're instantly going to save that then as lesson 15 so that we don't overwrite our work. And if we go into the code, we can come down here and change that to a 15 as well. So let's start by having a look at how the aliens actually move. If we look at the finished game, we'll see that the array of aliens actually takes small steps to the left and right. And when they get to the end of the screen, they then take a step down. So let's see if we can implement this in our code. So if we scroll down a bit in our listing to see where our alien variables are defined. So we have here our alien array, but then we have a number of variables which where we're starting to define how many rows and columns and how the aliens are spaced out. So we're going to need to add a few more variables into this block to control their movement. Now if we remember back to our very first bouncing numbers around the screen, we'll know that we used directions and speeds to control that movement. So let's first of all start with an alien direction. And again, this will tell us whether we're moving left or right. And to begin with then, our aliens start in the top left of the screen. So we need to add numbers onto their X position to make them move to the right. So we'll need a +1 value for this. We'll then want to have an alien speed. So this is the size of step they're going to take each time they make a move. And let's set that, we know that the actual alien sprite is 8 pixels wide, so let's set that to 4, so they'll take half a sprite move every single time. So that should give us a start then to getting these aliens moving. So let's add that code in here. So we know that we have our updating section here, where we move the player ship, and we're doing lots of sort of the player type stuff here. So after that, let's move the aliens. So let's put our code, our function call in there. And then down at the bottom then, we can actually, so after our draw aliens function, we'll put our new function in, which is our move aliens function. And let's end that here, and that's move aliens. So inside our function then, we're going to have to go through every single alien and update its position. So we know up here we have in our draw aliens, we know that we have the structure, this for loop surrounding another for loop to actually then access every single element. So we can actually just grab hold of that and do Control-C and copy it. And then in here, we can then paste it in there and just adjust that a bit. So we know that this for loops then actually let us access every single alien we need to. So we can take this bit out from the center. So that was the bit which actually drew the aliens. And this is obviously where we're now going to have to put our movement code in. So again, as we go to update our aliens then, one thing I took out too much, we do up here, we do check to see if the alien is actually alive, because there's no point updating him if the alien is actually dead. So let's just copy that out of there and paste it again in down here. And that's the end of our if statement. Okay, so if this particular alien is alive, then we need to update his position. So we know that it's our aliens array, our row, and then our column. So this is how we were using our for loops to access each individual alien. So we know that they have a position and we have an X position. And we need to make that equal to, let me just change font size here. Okay, so we're going to take that position again, right? So the new position is the old position, then adding on the alien movement idea. So again, we have here our alien speed. So that's how many pixels we move in each step. But then we need to use our direction variable. And that's how we'll be telling the system which way the alien's moving. So for this one here, so if the alien's alive, we update its X position to be its current X position plus the alien speed, so that step value, times the alien direction. So of course, when alien direction is 1, that will add alien speed onto the X position, and that will move him to the right. If the alien direction then is -1, that will end up taking away the alien speed value from the X position, which will move it to the left. So we should now have our aliens moving. Obviously they're not going to stop at the end of the row, but let's see if we can actually make that move. So I'm going to do Control R and see what happens. And here we have our error coming up. So let's have a look and see what's going on here. So alien speed, I've typed that in wrong. So that's on line, so here we are at line 257. Let's come back in here. So 257, I've put 2 S's in there. So let's do a Control R again to see if that works. And there we have our aliens disappearing off the screen. If I run it again, off they go. So we are moving the aliens, but they're going a bit fast, and obviously they're not hitting the edge of the screen and coming down. So I think the first thing we need to do is to get the edge of the screen worked out so that we actually get them moving correctly left to right and coming down. To do this edge detection then, we're going to need a number of other parameters. So I'm going to scroll back up to where we initialize our variables that control our aliens, and let's drop back into the bigger font size so we can see what's going on. So we have here our direction for the X and Y and our speed for the X and Y positions. So we're going to need then an alien vertical speed, and this will tell the system how far down the aliens need to step once they get to the edge of the screen, and we'll just make that another half of a sprite value. We also then need to specify what the limits are for the X position, both left and right. So let's say we have our alien max X position. So we're going to leave that at our normal 232. So that's one sprite width in from the edge of the left of the right of the screen, and then our alien min X, we're going to set that equal to 0. So our aliens should stay within those boundaries, and if they then start to go outside those boundaries, that's when we know they need to move down. So let's jump back down to our move aliens function. So I'm going to just use the navigator to get down there. So we know that this block of code, that actually then will move our aliens left or right, again depending on this value of the alien direction. So what we really want to do here is we want to, when it's time to move our aliens, we want to check if they are at the edge of the screen. So if they're at the edge of the screen, we're going to move them down. Otherwise, we're going to continue moving them left and right. So let's just add that in here. So we're going to say, so if, and we're going to use a function call here. So if aliens at the edge of the screen, that's going to be a function that we're going to have to write, which will do our edge detection. Then we will do a move down, else we will do our move left right, which is all of this block here. So So let's just tab this all in by 1. Tab it all in by 1. Okay. So let me just clean it up a bit as well, so it makes it a bit more readable. So we don't get too deep in our code. All right. So there's our if the aliens have reached the edge, then we're going to do some code in here which will move them down. Else, we need to just carry on doing our left-right movements. And then after that, we will then do our end on our if. So we obviously then have to write this aliens at edge function. So let's put that down at the end here. So we will have a function. So aliens, if I could spell, so aliens at edge, and that will be the end of the aliens at edge. So we've got our function call in there now. To move the aliens down then, we're going to need to do a very similar thing to we do here. So this, we know this for loop within a for loop, that simply steps through every single alien. So let's copy that and paste it in here. So we're doing exactly the same thing, but this time if the alien is alive, then we need to update the alien's Y position. So we need to take the alien who is at the row and column specified by our counters and adjust its Y position to be its existing Y position plus then our alien vertical speed. So that will simply then move all the aliens one step down. So we can actually check that now. So we've got our function aliens at edge, which down here will actually do a proper check on that. But at the moment, if we get it to return true, so in other words, it's saying that the aliens are always at the edge, okay? So our test up here, so aliens at edge, that is always going to return a value true. So we will always, so our system will always think that the aliens have reached the edge. So we're expecting them to just simply move straight down the screen. So let's try that using Control R. And there we have our aliens going down the screen. If I try that again, they go down the screen. So we now know that our code to move the aliens down works. But there is one other thing that happens when we do hit the edge. And that is that after we've moved down the screen, so remember this block of code moves the aliens down one, we need to change the alien direction. So we have a variable called alien direction, which is +1 for going to the right, -1 for going to the left. So we simply need to change its sign to get our aliens then going in the other direction. And let me just make that there. Okay. So we now have, if our aliens have hit the edge, then we move them down, which we've seen that works, and we change their direction. But of course we haven't yet got them going left and right and down at the same time. But that's one thing that we do need to do is get them to then obviously switch around to go in the other way. All we need to do now is to come into our aliens at edge function and actually get it to properly detect when the aliens have actually reached the edge. To work out the code for this then, we need to look at what happens when the alien array is reaching one of the edges. So say we are moving to the right and our aliens are approaching the right hand edge of the screen. We need to look at the aliens and find if any of them are within one step off the edge of the screen. So in effect, the next, if we were to move it one more step to the right, it would actually jump off the edge of the screen. If that's the case, then our aliens are at the edge and we need to move down. And the same thing, of course, will happen if we're moving to the left and we find an alien that on the next step will step off the left-hand edge of the screen. So let's think about how we're going to translate this into our code then. So we're now at our aliens at edge function, and we need to remove this little dummy line which was just letting us force it to go down the screen. And let's try fleshing out our thoughts using this idea of the pseudocode, where we're going to type it in not as real code but as sort of fake code. So we know that we are going to have to go through each of our aliens. So we're going to be using our for loop to go through and check each alien to see if it stepped off the edge of the screen. So inside our for loop, just as we did before, we're going to have to test if our alien is alive. And that's our end if alive bit. So if our alien is alive, then we need to check if it's going to step off the edge of the screen. But we have to check both directions in this. So we know that we have an alien direction variable that will tell us which way they're going. So we can then do in here, so if our alien is going right, and again that will be then a +1 in our alien direction value, then we know that we have to check if this alien's next step will take it off the edge of the screen. So we really need to check then, so if our alien X position plus our next step is going to be greater than our maximum X position. Okay, so what we're saying here is we need to work out what the next step will take where it will take our alien to. So our alien X value will be increased by the next step, and if that then has gone over the edge of the screen, then we are in the situation where we're going to step off the screen. So then we simply then want to send back a signal to our move alien function and tell it that the aliens at edge is true. So we're going to just simply return a true value. And doing this actually is one of the other ways of quickly getting out of a loop. So this function, once we found one alien that is going to step off the edge of the screen, we don't need to do anything else. We don't need to test any more aliens. This means that our aliens are at the edge, and that's all we need to send back. So we just send a true value back to our calling function, which is the move aliens function. Once our system sees us return, it will finish this function, and we don't need to worry about being halfway through a for loop or even halfway through an if statement or something. That will just simply get out of this function and go back to our calling function. So at this point there, we have found then an alien moving to the right. But of course then, if we're not moving to the right, then we're going to be moving to the left. So let me just put our things in here. So that's our end if statement for that. And then we want to do our else statement. So this else statement here will match up with this if statement. Okay, so our if statement checks if we're going to the right, else then we are going left, and our direction value will be -1 for this one. And let's just put in the end if one here, end if, and that's going left, right test. Okay, so if we get to this point, then we know we are traveling to the left. So we need to check if our alien X position will then have to take away our step value, which again was our alien speed value, and check if that is less than our minimum X value. And that will mean then that this alien, if he takes one more step to the left, he'll fall off the edge of the screen. And at that point then, of course, we simply want to again return a true value to say that this alien has gone off the edge of the screen. So that then gives us our alien at the edge detection function. So again, we're looping through every single alien, only checking aliens that are alive. If the current aliens are moving to the right, then we check if this alien is about to fall off the edge of the screen on the right. Otherwise, we must be going left, so we check if this alien is about to fall off the screen on the left. So that will catch this block here then will catch any aliens about to fall off the edge of the screen. But what happens then if we don't find any that are falling off the edge of the screen? Well, then we simply then think, if we have got to the very end of all of our for statements, so in other words, we've been through every single alien, if we get this far, then it stands to reason we haven't yet found one that's about to step off the edge of the screen. So at that point, we know that our aliens have not hit the edge of the screen, so we can simply return a false value. Okay, so if we have been through every alien, that will then give us the idea that that's where we will find an alien stepping off. So if we ever fully complete those for loops, that will by default mean that we haven't found an alien falling off the screen, so our aliens at edge will need to return a false value to say carry on going left or right. Okay, so that's our whole function then fleshed out in this idea of pseudocode. What I'd like you to do then is have a go at implementing this. So you know that our for each alien, that's our usual for loop inside a for loop doing the rows and columns. We've already done how to say if they're alive or not. We know that our alien direction value is the one that's going to tell us if we're going left or right. So it will be +1 for going right, -1 for going left. And then, very similar to what we did with our bouncing text around the screen, we're now going to simply say if our alien X value, if we take one more step in the required direction, so remember we're going to use a plus step here and a minus step in the left where it's going 1. If it's moving off the edge of the screen, so remember greater than max X to test the moving right, less than min X to test the moving left, then we return a true value which says we're about to hit the edge of the screen. Then at the very end we simply return a false because that means that we haven't found any aliens stepping off the edge. Okay, so remember we'll need to, these variables here are the ones we defined at the top of the listing. So you have to work out what those variable names should be, and again how we pick out the alien X position and so on. So do have a go at this one, and I'll put a timer on, and then at the end I'll explain how it all goes through and see if you got it right or not. So have a good go and see you in a few seconds. So hopefully you've had a go at putting that code in. But let's go through together then and see what we can do. Again, if you didn't manage to work it out, don't worry, just follow through now and see if you can understand what's going on. And again, everything is all learning on this. So we start off then with our for each alien bit. And again, that's very similar to what we have in our other functions. So we have our loop inside a loop. So our for loop inside a for loop. So if I copy up those two for statements and then put them in here, so we go in there, and then of course we'll want to end our for statements down here. So we have a end of our for. So this will be for our columns, and we have an end to our for loop for our rows. Okay. So, come back up here again. A lot of this we can copy out of here. So, we then check if we have a live alien or not. So let's come down and do our live alien. So again, that must be tabbed in by 1. So we have our alien. So if our alien is alive, then do that. And here we do our end alive bit. So that's the end of our if it's alive statement. So 4 row, 4 column, if alive. Then we need to check if we're going left or right. So again, we said that we have this alien direction variable. So let's just tab that in one here. So we have if our alien direction has the value of +1, then that means that we are traveling to the right. So we need to check if our next step will take us off the right hand edge of the screen. So let's just check if that is the case. So if, and then we have our, to get our actual alien we're looking at, we look at our aliens array, our row counter and our column counter. We look at its position, x value. So if our aliens row column position dot x, if we add on, so let's just go to a smaller font size here. If we add on our alien speed value, okay, so that's the x position it will take at the next step. And if that is greater than, and it puts a new line here, our alien max x value, then we have hit the side. So at that point we will want to return true, and we then want to end our if statement for here. Okay, so this end goes with this if statement, and we're checking the current x position plus one more step. If it's greater than our max x, then we have hit the edge and we return true back to our movement function, and that will be the end of this function here. Okay, so we now need to do the other direction. So remember, that if statement gave us going right. So we now need, let me put it underneath here, our else statement. That needs to be tabbed in by 1, right? So else, we're going left. And again, we're going to do a very similar one to here. So if I just copy that if statement, and then if we put it in to here, okay, so let's just tidy it up. Okay, so else we're going left. So if alien, so the alien we're looking at, his x position, we now need to take away the alien speed. Okay, so that will give him the next step to the left. We need to check if that is less than our alien minimum x position. Oh, let's just tidy up those 2 bits of typing errors there. Okay, so we pick out our alien we're currently looking at, get his x position, give him, test him, so that's where he will be if he takes one more step to the left. And if that is less than our minimum x position, then he is now hitting the edge, so we return true, and that will be the end of this function. Okay, but we now want to make sure that we end our left and right test. So that is the end of our if statement for that, and the end of our if alive statement. And then we'll go around and check the next alien. So that gives us the code then for our testing if we've hit the left and right edges. So our loop within a loop, so that we can go through the full 2-dimensional array, picking out a single alien and checking if he's alive. We're then making decisions. So if we're going to the right, then we check this particular alien to see if his next step will take him off the right-hand edge. And if it will do, we return a true value, which will signify that the aliens have hit the edge. Otherwise, he must be traveling left. And we do the same test then for the left-hand edge. If his current position minus one more step will take him off the left-hand edge of the screen, then again we return true to say that we've now moving down the screen. Very last bit then is if we don't find any aliens hitting the edge, we simply return false by default, and that will then signify that we just continue moving left and right. Okay, so that should be our code then, which will detect if the aliens have hit the edge of the screen. So let's try running that and see what happens. And there we have our aliens going left and right, and then at each edge taking one step down to get closer to the bottom. Okay, so we now have our aliens moving in the correct directions. So in other words, they're going left and right and coming down, but they are going a bit fast. So what we'll do is we'll leave this lesson here. So we've now got all that done. If you haven't got that working yet, then please do go through the code and follow through and see exactly where you went wrong and fix that to get to the same working state we now are at. I'm now going to save my code, so if I press Ctrl S to save my lesson 15. So make sure you saved your work, and then in the next lesson we'll have a look at controlling the speed of the aliens as they move around the screen. So see you in lesson number 16. Don't forget to visit the course pages for this project. There you'll be able to download the code for this lesson and get lots of extra hints and tips. You'll also get access to all my other programming, electronics and gaming projects. All the links are in the description below. For more games programming, electronics projects and retro gaming, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my website.